And listen how quiet everybody gets for you.
I know.
How does that happen?
Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good. Hopefully it won't be any feedback. And then I have a confession to make. I've never been to a book club before. I don't know. I don't know what goes on.
Well, honestly, most of the ones that I've been at, there's been wine.
Wine, yeah.
Of course. Where's the wine? I forgot.
Well, you don't know what's in here now, do you?
Okay.
It is water.
Well, that's just the first of many confessions I'll probably make tonight. After being in the closet.
You know, it's good for all. You know, lighten the heart.
I don't know about that. At any rate, I do have a mic that I can pass around if anybody wants to use it to ask questions or make a statement about this book, Steal Like an Artist, or Show Your Work, or this other book, Keep Going, or this other book, Steal Like an Artist Journal. So Austin Kleon also has another book that we don't have here. I think it's called Blackout Poetry. What's the name of it, Susan?
Newspaper Blackout.
Newspaper Blackout. So he is quite prolific. And I will say right at the beginning that if you didn't get a chance to read it, you can go online and listen to it in entirety for free on YouTube. So I listened to Steal Like an Artist today. It's about an hour. And I didn't get all the way through this one. I've read it before, but it's about an hour and a half. So there's a little more text in this book. So they're both very short. And so I would ask you, why do you think these books are so popular? Well, first let me say that this one, just this past month, has sold over 1 million copies.
Wow.
And so my question to you is, why do you think it's so popular?
It's easy to read.
Easy to read. And they're like, you know, you can pick them up. They're funny. You got a sense of humor. You can pick them up and let where you left off or start over again or move around in the book. It doesn't really matter if you read it in sequence. Yeah, over 1 million copies this past month. Of course, the book has been on the market for 10 years, but does anybody have any initial impressions otherwise that they'd like to yell out?
I loved it because, you know, everybody always says, well, copyright and don't copy that. And like he says, every idea comes from something. So, you know, I love that because it made me go, yeah, you know, I'm not stealing an idea. It's okay.
I'm embellishing it.
Yeah.
I found that his purpose was to really get you doing art and trusting yourself. You know, to look at everything, and I love that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I really identify with that.
Right, and not feel bad necessarily if you're going to copy a Van Gogh or use that style or work in that manner or something. Yes.
I also like the fact that everybody enters a show and not everybody wins, and we beat ourselves up for that reason. And yet he says there's millions of people that enter shows that are wonderful artists and don't get picked. So we have to stop beating ourselves up.
That's right, yeah. And then I think the other message that I got from all the books was share your work. The world is waiting for you, and he was just very encouraging on all those lines of being willing to share your work and put it online. And one statement that kind of perked up my ears this morning as I was listening to it on audio was he said that at one point, I'm going to paraphrase it, but if your work's not online, it doesn't exist. And I thought, well, I don't know about that, and of course, like these books were written 10 years ago, or some of them were. But I guess now more than ever, it's kind of true. That's the way people look at and consume art is, by and large, they do go to galleries and shows and openings and everything, but there's just a whole online presence that artwork has, and that people like to look at it that way. So I thought that was an interesting statement. I don't know if I agree with it 100%, but it's out there. And I think that I would try to encourage everybody to try and get their work online. Just as a random question, I'm not being judgmental, but how many people have been to see Barbie? There's 2, 3. Okay, that's all right. Don't-
I loved it. It was fabulous.
Did you dress up?
Oh, no, I didn't. I have a girlfriend, but no, I loved it. It was wonderful.
I heard it's good.
I like that he said to be around other people who do art, whatever your art is, because what was his mom said, garbage in, garbage out. But you know, if you immerse yourself with other people, you learn, and it encourages you. And I think that's really true, even though
Not a tribe, but your, what do you call them?
Asenius. Asenius. What he was implying that some musician had said that it wasn't, don't be a genius, be a genius, which means just absorb all kinds of influences, across the board. And his whole attitude, even Jay and I were talking about that earlier, was that, don't be afraid to put it out there, even if it's not finished or in progress, and don't be afraid to take a comment and, take it on the jaw, and if you get one like that, and then just move on. So he has a real nice kind of light, friendly attitude, and don't be intimidated by it, I think is what he was saying. And
Going back to the website, I do know that if you ever want to get some gallery representation, having a website it's a value to you,
Oh yeah, it's almost necessary.
Even being featured, I know at Green Door, being
Exactly.
featured, she looks to see if you have a website.
Or some sort of online
Or
presence,
some sort of online presence, so.
which could be Facebook, which could be Instagram.
Yeah.
But as long as you're consistent and easy to find, somewhere online. And if you don't have a website, what he says is that it's easy enough to do. You just, buy a domain name. You can look up all these tutorials. It tells you how to do it. It's not that difficult. Anyone can do it. It's just a matter of practicing and, putting yourself out there. Not everybody's going to be like Sally and create this masterpiece. But look, you've learned to do that. You weren't doing that before you came here, were you?
I did, but I still had to learn at one point. There was my first website that I ever built.
Okay, all right. So this is your second website? Third?
There's a few. Yeah. I used to design them for people, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I had to start somewhere.
Well, yeah, you have to start somewhere. And as you do more and you do more, well, what I was amazed is you do it on a format called WordPress. And I've used that before, and I had some stuff that was just beautiful on WordPress, but I've never been able to master it. Maybe you should give a workshop on. You could do workshop. You could do Instagram. Sorry, I was just.
Hey, let me hook you up with our workshop guy.
I also have WordPress, but I also learned that there's some things I can manage in it, and I did find someone to manage it for me. And I actually found someone really reasonable to manage when I need updates and when I do. So.
Well, that's what Cleon says, is that if you can't do it yourself, it's easy enough to hire somebody to do it. And these days it's not that expensive. But if you're serious about promoting your art and having a professional presence, is that you almost have to have some sort of online presence. One thing is that with the website, with GEAG Facebook, with GEAG Instagram, you have a built-in online presence. As long as you submit to the website, to Sally's information, with Peggy's newsletter, it's very important that you're reaching a really wide audience, basically for no money. There's expenses involved, but it's a really easy thing to do. And so that is something that's offered to you by being a member of GEAG. I also have a confession to make. Another confession. I'm a big kleptomaniac. Okay. Anybody know the work of Brian Haynes? Well, Brian Haynes is a great painter. He lives in Washington, Missouri. He has a studio and gallery right downtown. And a few years ago, he came out with this book called New Regionalism, and I'll pass it around because it's really great if you haven't seen it. It really is a catalog of all the work he'd done up to that point. And he's done some illustrations, but he did big murals, and I was working in an outfit once at Hardin to do some murals in their lobby. And so he was selling his book one day there, and he signed my copy. You can see it in the front, but I'll pass it around. I said, Brian, I love your work. I said, I'm going to steal all your ideas. And he said, well, that's okay, Mike. You'll just be stealing them from the guy I stole.
Well, you know, in this book, he says, let's see, everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything must be said again.
That's right. That's right. And he also says that even goes back to the Bible, that there's nothing new under the sun, and the only thing that makes it new is you. You know, it's new for you. So even if you feel like you've painted a landscape that's been painted many times by somebody else, it's new to you. So I always like that attitude. In fact, you know, I was very sad to hear that Tony Bennett died last week. You know, he's a painter too, and I heard an interview with him, and he was saying that the interviewer asked him, you know, where he got his ideas for his song stylings and so on, and he said, well, I don't copy anybody in particular. He said, well, you know, if you copy one person, it's called plagiarism, but if you copy 100, it's called research. So, and you know, he brings that point out in his book too. So, anyway, Tony was a great painter, and Tony Bennett was a great painter besides a musician.
I like how he took it one step further, though. He talked about not just stealing the work of the artists, not just copying them, but understanding their thinking and stealing their, to learn to think like the artists that you admire. Because if we don't figure out how to do it ourselves, or figure out the genesis of whatever it is we're looking at, we can't replicate it in something else.
That's such a good point. I read an article by the director of the, it's a museum in Orlando Park, Florida, that has a lot of Louis Comfort Tiffany works. And he said that, you know, looking at art is one thing, but when you really take the time to understand where the artist was coming from, what they were trying to say, what their situation was, is when the study of art becomes more meaningful and even fun, you know. So I take the point. So that's a good one. And yes.
Well, the other point that goes with that point was he said to study that artist, but also to study who they study or who they reference, because it's almost like the ancestry of how he got to be where he was by all the references that he brought out. Oh, I looked at that, or I looked at that. And I find that so true that when I'm like reading a book, I'm always, you know, and I'm attracted to an author, or I'm listening to an author, I listen to what they reference. And then I go to that book, and then I go to that. And
sure.
it opens up my world to the things I like in a bigger way.
Exactly. And, you know, it widens your perspective or your view, and, you know, just brings that much more understanding to it. And to go back to that point, he was talking about the newspaper blackout poetry. Did anybody catch on to how he does that? He talked about how he got started with that. It was that his parents loved newspapers, and he grew up around newspapers. He subscribed to 2 daily newspapers. There were newspapers everywhere all the time. And so he was always surrounded by print. And one day he was sitting there, and he just started drawing boxes around words. And then he started scratching everything else out except what was in the boxes, and he found that he was making these little kind of nonsensical statements in poetry, and he called it poetry. And he said, well, I got a lot of criticism for that because it wasn't anything new. I was just, putting together something that was already there. And he said, well, that he looked into it, and that actually another artist had done that like 100 years before, and then another artist, that artist copied it from like 200 years before. So it's like, he realized that it's a 400-year-old medium of manipulating words on a page with ink pen. So that's how I came up with that book. So that was another interesting. He's real interesting.
Legacy.
Yes, it's interesting to hear him speak because he's very enthusiastic about about his subject matter. And Susan, you sent me that link. That was a good one because it was him, and it was about a half hour long. It was like a TED Talk. Remember that?
Oh. The one where he, I don't have it written down.
Yeah, but anyway, it's him, and he's not reading the book, but he gives a PowerPoint presentation that summarizes this book, Steal Like an Artist, and it's really good. It's only about a half hour, and it's funny, and he goes over a lot of the illustrations that are in the book. But that was another thing, is that I thought that his graphic design sense is really good and casual, and I'm sure he works at that to make it look that way, but it looks pretty effortless the way he does it. Carrie, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, it had to do with being consistent to put stuff on a website.
Oh, okay. All right. Nancy.
Well, the first one, Feel Like an Artist, I read this first, and this was good because it's what we do without even thinking about it, some of this stuff. But this one made me brave.
I like that.
Because, I don't know, showing my work, I associated that with like showing off or being egotistical or all those negative things that goes with putting your work out there.
Like being self-promotional, yeah.
And that's a very hard thing for me. But since I've read this, I've talked to Mary Martin. I'm going to do a UPO watercolor
Nice.
class.
Nice.
Working out times and stuff. But I do demos for the UPO, watercolor on UPO, and I thought, well, all right, I'm going to start sharing this. It's fun, and people have fun doing it. But that's what I felt about this. It made me braver.
Well, and I found it's a vulnerability, but also I think it was interesting that he said to let people know about your process.
Yeah.
Let them steal from you.
Yes.
But your process is something like I stole cyanotype from
And I stole from her.
So
And I stole from somebody else.
so I
But
think it's
even
really
if we
interesting.
steal from each other, no matter what, we could all be having the same topic, the same equipment, paints, whatever. You bring your own experience to it. I taught writing at SIU for 30 years, and I would give them all one topic. And the experience they bring to it and the words they use, their vocabulary, they were never boring because they were always different, even if it was about the same little thing. So
It's the same like teaching art. I was exactly the same way. I never got bored. Give them all the same rules. Okay, you're going to do this, this, and this, and away you go, and they were all different. I loved it.
That's great. Well, Nancy, I'm really glad to hear that that book kind of helped you in that way. I myself, a few years back, found myself at a creative block, I guess. I didn't know what to do. I had plenty of things to do, but I was painting plein air, and I was also working as a commercial illustrator, and I was getting assignments from art directors, and I was going to paint plein air, and I'm kind of like trained on the scene, but I was doubting myself in that, where are my own ideas? I can copy nature, I can take direction on, illustration work, but what are my ideas? And I didn't have any. I didn't think. And so I took a workshop with an artist named Tom Huck. He's a printmaker. He's in St. Louis, but he's very successful. Does these huge woodblock prints, and it's his subject matter is like hillbilly heaven or hillbilly hell or something like that. And anyway, he had this workshop. He gives a couple workshops, one on printmaking. He does one on printmaking boot camp where you actually spend 2 weeks camping out at his place, sleep on the floor, eat pizza and hot dogs, and just make prints. I didn't really want to do that, but he did give one on sketchbook because he's real heavy into sketchbooks. So I brought my sketchbook that I did from that class, and there's a couple markers in here, but he said you have to limit yourself to using a sketchbook, and you can sketch with either a pencil or a ballpoint pen, nothing else, no color, nothing. So that was another one of Austin Kleon's things, is that subtraction is like creation. And if you limit yourself in a certain way, it forces you to think about doing things in a certain way. So anyway, this is all just ink, pen, and pencil. And then he gave us exercises each week, and they were really odd exercises. And then we had some figure drawing. But he explained how he came up with his ideas for his prints, and they're all about his travels and seeing road signs. And so he did this. I think it was called the Monkey Chronicles, where it's all about fast food in America and how bad it is. And this enormous black and white prints, woodcuts that took hours to make. But all of his work has been purchased by Ted and Mary Simmons, the baseball player, and his wife who runs the print, and they donated it all to the St. Louis Art Museum. So he's incredible. And then he led us through this sketchbook workshop, and I'm going to pass this around. But at this time, just kind of by chance, one of his heroes is Albrecht Dürer, because Dürer made woodcuts. But they had a show at the Art Museum of a private collection of Renaissance and early on graphics, and a couple Dürers were in there, and there's some Rembrandt prints, and he went all through this. It was fascinating, and it's stuff that I thought I knew, that I thought I'd seen before, but had never really developed appreciation for it. And so there was one print called "The Dream of the Doctor," and it's it's an odd thing. There's the doctor sitting there, and there's, I don't know if they're angels or spirits, and all kinds of weird stuff going on. But it was just fascinating. It got me to thinking. I'm trying to get through this creative block, and so I started thinking about, okay, Dream of the Doctor. And then so I went and I'll show you this page. I'll just pass this around. All this stuff was done in his workshop. It's called The Dream of the Doctor, Albrecht Dürer. And then I thought, okay, well, we'll just do other dreamers. So I just started listing professions like aviator, glassblower, ballerina, philosopher, sorcerer, chairman, astronaut. It just goes on. And so I just thought, all the dreams of what those people were doing, that would make a great set of illustrations or paintings or something like that. I also had an idea of shapes being containers. So I had backgrounds, dreamy backgrounds, and shapes contain ideas. So I'm just going to pass this one around too. And you can look through the whole book, but that refers to that. But
well, and then Sally just put out on our members' Facebook page and Instagram what inspires you and where do you get your ideas, and that's what that's a kind of a neat thing to see where other people get their ideas.
Yeah, because if you're in a slump or just not feeling it, it's helpful to hear about what other people do.
yeah, he said, I'm not going to grade your work.
Right.
Because he was a retired professor, and I'll just tell you what he said. He says, I'm not going to grade your work because I don't do that shit anymore. And, sorry, but that's what he said. And but he just checked and see if you've done the work, And but he was funny. He had a lot of funny things to say. And but I really appreciate him getting me going on something. Now, I didn't really follow through on any of this too much, but it basically resonated with me because I knew that keeping a sketchbook was important. I just had kind of slacked off on doing it. And he talked about a lot of art stuff that I knew about but hadn't really thought about. And it just kind of got me back into it and started thinking again. And once I got through the sketchbook, I kind of put it down, didn't work on it anymore. But it was a time period where, oh yeah, it's like I was using those muscles again. So it makes a difference. Now, this is my current sketchbook, and there's some things in here. This is a little more Austin Kleon, but I'll pass this one around too. And there's some older stuff in there, but once I started reading Austin Kleon, I thought, well, I got to, step up my game a little bit with the sketchbook. But keeping a sketchbook is real important, and he talks about keeping a notebook. He also talks about distraction. He also talks about all kinds of things that are not necessarily related to art directly, but things that you can do to kind of, get your creative juices flowing, I guess, for lack of a better way.
This is marvelous. Do you ever just tear
It's
pages out?
fabulous.
It looks like you never make a mistake.
Well, my philosophy is on a sketchbook, I don't take the pages out.
Okay.
People have asked me if I sell them, but it's a sketchbook, it's mine, and I don't mind copying them and posting them, but and I have in the past, but I just don't want to do that yet.
What medium are you? Is this marker?
Those are markers and ink pens.
I was gonna say, because we're sealing it, it's like,
It's so pretty.
Well, it's a nice hardbound sketchbook, and I was doing some murals, so I had to have kind of a nice thing to make presentations with. And that was another thing I stole from Brian Haynes, was that if you look through his book and saw all those marvelous sketches that he does preliminary for clients, I had actually worked for, like I said, a project that he submitted sketches on, and he prints them out on these beautiful papers, and it's just very elegant the way he handles his work. And if you were the client, of course you're going to buy it. It's just wonderful to look at. I don't want to take up too much time, but does anybody else have any observations about the book? Yes.
The one thing he said in his book that resonated with me is if you find in your world that you're the smartest person in the room, you need a different room. Amen. I love that because, we all have friends that say, oh, you're so talented and all that, and I look at myself and go, whatever. So I went back to school, and I am totally not a smart person now, and I have grown exponentially. Whereas if I had stayed the talented friend,
Yeah.
I would have not changed anything. I wouldn't have grown. I wouldn't have learned anything. And that's so true. If you're the smartest person in the room, or most talented, not smart, but most talented person in the room, you need to find another friend. So you learn from each other, steal ideas from each other.
Oh, that's great. That's great what you said. Great what Nancy said.
And I find 2D inspiration for 3D objects. That's a lot of things people don't realize. I'll see something that's drawn or something that somebody's painted, or I see color tones that you guys have done, and I'm like, holy cow, if I add that color tone into this edge of this flower or into the middle of this item, I'll get that depth that I've been looking for that's been missing from this object. And just because I'm 3D and you're 2D doesn't mean we can't learn from each other. And I learn a lot from this group for the levels of different things that, the sketchbooks are a big thing for me also. But I think it's very important that we see what everybody else is doing, and because it inspires each other.
Yeah, and then we can steal from each other. Exactly. In fact, he goes back to Picasso, who said that, good artists copy, but great artists steal. So, I think other people have said that too, but I thought it was a great, coming from Picasso anyway.
It's funny because I just wrote my newsletter, and part of it was about experiences and thinking about them. And so our experiences actually navigate what we create. You were having an experience of a class that challenged you to create, to use your imagination, to play with it. So, but you thought about it, I love the list that you made of all the, different types, because that list was us thinking, we thought about what if, our imagination gets to play.
That's right.
And then we get to really, then we grab that thing that really grabs our heart and go, I gotta create that.
Yeah, I did some digital work after that with the shapes, the containers. I was thinking, oh, this is great. a shape as a container. You could draw anything inside there, and I just kind of tried to think of the weirdest stuff I could draw inside of, a heart shape or a box or a cross or something like that. And it was just real, an exercise, not necessarily. I thought, I did do some more finished work, but digital, that didn't really resonate with anybody. But for me, I was like, okay, if I take this another step, maybe I could do it. And you do see a lot of shaped canvases. I was thinking, well, maybe I could try that, but I never did, other than just on a digital tablet. But, it's just a way of getting you to think and getting you to move. And that's what he said, or quoted somebody as saying, is in the digital age, you need to use your digits. So, get out and make something. So, even though he's very strong about having an online presence and everything, he says sometimes you got to get away from it and actually do something with your hands. Use your hands.
Well, and he said he has one desk over here, one desk over here, and there's no digital stuff on that one. It's all analog, and it's all hands-on. Yeah. And all of the computer, all the digital stuff is over here, and none of the two shall meet,
Yeah.
So.
And he does a lot of journaling and notebooks, and he also writes a weekly newsletter, right, Susan? You sent me a copy of that this week. It's beautifully
That was
written.
good.
Yeah,
Oh, I loved that.
That was
That was
good.
really good.
Beautifully
He's
written.
got so many links in different directions that he goes on, and then he kind of paves the way and says, this is what I really loved, and makes suggestions. I can put it in the newsletter, or
That'd be great.
email
Yeah, that'd be
get
great.
everybody the same information.
It was a beautiful.
Yeah, we just
note.
need to maybe put a link to his newsletter.
Yeah, his newsletter is free, but then if you want to pay, I ended up paying $40 a year, and then you get a extra special version.
Well,
And
$40 a year is not
It's
much.
reasonable, it's cheaper that way than do it monthly, and I have been looking at his newsletters for years for free, and I finally decided, well, maybe I should see what else he has to offer, but it's really, there's so much content in his free newsletter, I really didn't need anything more.
Any other comments about Austin Kleon and his book?
Well, actually, I just like the fact that in your sketchbook, you draw right side up, upside down. You aren't, no, but you do that. Something hits your head, you pull your sketchbook out, you start drawing, you're like, crap, I'm upside down. Oh, well.
Yeah. Exactly. You nailed it.
The idea is still going, I am not stopping now,
You got my quote exactly there. I did see something I wanted to mention about, I can't remember what the name of the chapter was, but it's something like subtraction is creation or something like that. But I saw an artist that, she posted this online, I think it was on Instagram, and she'd been trying to do a complete sketchbook of just finished drawings all the way through. She'd never been able to accomplish what she got. The page would get messed up, it wouldn't look good, she didn't want to tear it out. Finally, she said, okay, I'm just going to do insects. So she has a whole beautiful book, page after page, beautiful watercolors of just like butterflies and, insects, and beautifully done. So once I limited myself to that, it wasn't so hard. I wasn't so concerned about messing up. I was able to finish a whole book, and she flipped through every page, and they were all beautiful illustrations.
Well, and I thought it was interesting that he said, even if you're not done, go ahead and post it in progress.
Yeah.
And it sparks more interest in what you're doing, and it brings more people to see what you're doing. Like, I only have a Facebook page, I don't have a website, but I know I should. But, like, I just finished a portrait of my grandson, and I didn't post anything because it was a gift, but now that I've given it, I can go ahead and I'm thinking just tonight, I'm like, oh, well, I could, like, post my first sitting and second sitting, and,
I'd love
kind
to
of.
see that.
Well, and I like how Sally even put on the website the one time, what's your work in progress, and
Yeah.
she was encouraging us to do things that wasn't finished.
I almost brought the sketch for that hummingbird and the flower. It is the world's worst sketch.
Well, it worked.
It worked. And I was just like, I just gotta get the general shapes down, it popped in my head, and then later on, I was like, okay, now I gotta actually do something with that.
A real good example of what you were talking about, Peggy, was this week, and in the past, Karen Romani has posted progress stages of her cabbages and flowers, and it's just amazing. And you know, think about Karen when she first started doing that. She was here and bring that work in, and how much she's progressed. Like in the past year or two, she's had a couple shows at the Green Door Gallery. She's taught a workshop at the Heartland Art Club. She's been to some national shows, and she regularly shares work in progress. And she goes, I don't know if I'm done with this yet or not. And her comments about it, and so that's a good example of somebody who does that.
Yeah, and well, this portrait that I did, as opposed to my other one that I did of my granddaughter, hers went really well, but this one just gave me fits. So along the way, so it's like, ugh.
Well, and then what Austin Cleon says, if you post that work and you post those comments, you open up about your difficulties, your what you're happy with, what you're not. You see that a lot of artists do that. Is that
But
it
it
draws
just
people,
doesn't come.
it
Yeah.
draws people to you, and because they relate to that. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting approach, because for a lot of generations, you were very secretive about what you were doing. You don't want anyone to know. You don't want to steal your ideas or anything.
Right.
But it's the whole attitude's kind of changed.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
it
we
also
received.
shows people who are maybe struggling with something themselves that, hey, the end work can be glorious. It just, sometimes you have to go through fire to get there. You have to go through the garbage. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to just
You know, there's
shake
all-
your head at yourself and go, what am I doing here?
Exactly.
Like, paint over it and try again, or
He
whatever.
outlines that on one of those pages, the typical attitude of the artist during a painting. It starts out, this is going to be the greatest thing, and then it goes out, well, it's okay. Well, then you get down to the very bottom of the chart, and oh, what am I doing? You know.